Next week on Emmerdale, Moira is left shaken by Victoria's bold choice. Paddy finally reaches out for support for Bear, and John is farewelled in an unexpected way. Cain pushes Bear for answers. As the current week ended, Cain was battling to cope with his prostate cancer diagnosis, while also dealing with the devastating reality of Moira being locked up, having been accused of killing both Celia and Anya. At the same time, Paddy has been doing everything he can to keep his father Bear hidden away at home, terrified that his fragile mental condition could lead him to confess to causing Ray's death. Speaking recently to Every Soap and other media, Dominic Brunt explained that Paddy's biggest fear is losing his dad all over again, having already believed him to be dead once before. Although Paddy believes in the justice system, he knows Bear is barely holding himself together after everything he endured, heavily medicated and psychologically damaged after being held captive. Since Bear was one of the enslaved workers on Celia and Ray's land, Cain believes he could provide vital evidence proving Moira's innocence. Cain turns up at Tennant's house hoping to question Bear, but his presence immediately unsettles him. As Cain grows increasingly impatient, Bear starts to unravel completely, forcing an angry Paddy to demand that Cain leave so he can calm his dad down. Next week, with Paddy absent, Cain returns and attempts to pressure Bear into reporting everything to the police, convinced it's the only way to help Moira. The situation escalates into a physical struggle, and when Dylan walks in to see Cain trying to drag Bear from the house, he steps in and forces Cain to back off. 2. Dylan comes clean with April. Later on, Dylan finally opens up to his girlfriend April and admits he was there when Ray died. He tells her that Bear was responsible, explaining that Ray's death was accidental and happened when Bear tried to protect Paddy from being threatened. The revelation leaves April completely shaken. When Dylan later admits to Paddy that April now knows the truth, Paddy reacts furiously. Dominic Brunt explained that it's not just the secret spreading that worries Paddy, but the fact that April is now entangled in it all. If the truth emerges, April could face serious consequences for knowing what happened and staying silent. Paddy is also terrified that April may feel compelled to tell Marlon or Rona, making the situation even harder to contain. As Paddy and Dylan argue, the raised voices once again distress Bear, sending his anxiety spiraling. The next day, April suggests that telling the police might be the only solution, but Paddy immediately shuts the idea down, insisting it would look like a long-running cover-up. Dominic added that Paddy constantly debates whether to confess, but simply isn't ready. Bear is unwell, coming off medication and mentally unstable, and Paddy feels his priority is protecting his dad from further trauma. His plan is to hide Bear away for now and deal with the consequences later, once Bear is in a better state of mind. 3. Paddy finally reaches out for help. Midweek, the pressure intensifies when Dylan tells Paddy that news of Ray's death is now spreading widely in the press. With the case gaining public attention, Paddy becomes convinced that involving professionals could attract unwanted scrutiny. When April later visits the house, Bear is confused to see her so upset. She admits she's frightened the police may still come after her, and her honesty encourages Bear to open up about his own guilt over Ray's death. April reassures him that he's cared for and not alone, attempting to remind him of the kind of man Ray truly was, but her words only leave Bear more distressed and conflicted. Paddy returns to find his father in tears and realizes he can't cope on his own anymore. After comforting April and assuring her that Bear's condition isn't her fault, Paddy decides to arrange counseling for his dad, despite his earlier fears. In a special Friday episode, Bear, April, and Dylan all confront their guilt head-on. As Bear attends a therapy session with Lucy, his overwhelming remorse becomes painfully clear. Meanwhile, Dylan admits to Paddy that he hates himself and believes everyone would be better off if he left the village, leaving Paddy heartbroken. Dominic Brunt explained that Paddy naturally looks out for people who haven't had the opportunities he did, seeing Dylan almost like a son. With a spare room and a stable life, Paddy refuses to let Dylan return to the streets. At the same time, April continues to punish herself for her past mistakes. When Rona argues that she was manipulated, April insists she deserves consequences for selling drugs. 4. Sarah stands by Cain. At Butler's farm, despite opening up to Sarah and Liam about his cancer diagnosis, Cain refuses to prioritize his own health while Moira remains in prison. During a visit, Cain downplays the seriousness of his illness, telling Moira it won't require treatment. Natalie J. Robb recently explained that Moira senses Cain isn't being completely honest, even though she's relieved by what he tells her. Cain believes he's protecting her, but Moira would rather face the truth head-on. On Tuesday, Sarah accompanies Cain to a hospital appointment where the consultant explains he'll need a radical prostatectomy. Although Sarah tries to stay strong, the reality clearly frightens her. Once alone, Cain begins to feel overwhelmed at the thought of facing surgery without Moira. Later, seeing headlines about Moira's charges only hardens his resolve to protect her, even as Sarah gently checks in on him. Cain shuts down the conversation, insisting Moira's situation matters more than anything else. 5. Victoria uncovers Robert's secret. Elsewhere, Victoria is informed by the coroner that John's death has officially been ruled a suicide, closing the door on any police investigation, but leaving her uneasy. Meanwhile, pressure mounts at Butler's farm, as Victoria and Robert are forced into selling their share to Joe, who is blackmailing them with footage of Victoria killing John. Racked with guilt, Victoria considers telling Cain the truth, but Robert warns her it would only make things worse. When Joe summons Robert, he threatens to plant more evidence unless the sale is rushed through. Victoria overhears the exchange and is deeply shaken. Confronting Robert later, she demands answers, and he finally admits he hid the forced laborer's ID documents at the farm, directly implicating Moira. Realizing Joe is once again using the footage to control them, Victoria decides she's prepared to hand herself in if it will free Moira. 6. Joe tightens the noose. The following day, Joe pushes Victoria to sign the contracts immediately, threatening to go to the police if she refuses. Victoria refuses to be rushed and leaves with the paperwork, infuriating him. Will Moira agree to the deal? On Wednesday, Joe delivers an ultimatum, demanding Moira's signature within 6 hours or he'll expose the footage. Victoria visits Moira in prison and explains that selling the farm feels unavoidable. Moira initially resists but begins to soften until Victoria reveals the buyers are the Tates. The news forces Moira to reconsider everything. Will she really partner with her enemies? 8. Tracy takes charge of John's ashes. On Thursday, Robert and Aaron are stunned when John's ashes arrive. Unsure what to do with them, they're interrupted when Tracy spots the urn at the woolpack and seizes control, determined to exact her own revenge for Nate's death. When Aaron and Victoria realize Tracy and Robert have disappeared, they quickly work out where they've gone. In the pub toilets, Tracy prepares to flush the ashes, urging a reluctant Robert to let her go through with it. 9. Robert reconnects with his roots. Later, Aaron grows concerned after finding Robert alone in Annie's field. His mood lifts slightly when Robert uncovers the original Emmerdale farm stone, reflecting on the Sugden family's deep ties to the land. As he recalls the village's history and its renaming after the plane crash, Robert regains a sense of purpose. With renewed determination, he vows to reclaim both his family and the farm. Emmerdale airs weeknights at 8 p.m. on ITV1 and is available to stream on ITVX.